awakening my joy, my joy, my joy.
Good evening, poetry community and poetry lovers. I am happy to be bringing you another great episode of the Poet's Lighthouse. I am Finn Bell, your host, poet and writer from the San Francisco Bay Area. Tonight, we have in the Lighthouse someone who I've had the pleasure of getting to know through her moving and thoughtful poetry at Benicia's monthly First Tuesday Poets. That person is Nina Serrano. Nina is an active 87-year-old prize-winning poet and media producer from Vallejo, California. She has published 3 volumes of poetry, Heart Songs, Heart's Journey, and Heart Strong. She is currently working on another, Out of the Blue, that will be available later this year. She also published a novel, Nicaragua Way. Her plays have been produced in the United States and Canada. Currently, she produces regular monthly radio programs on literature and Latinx affairs on KPFA 94.1 FM and OZCAT Radio 89.5 FM. She has directed the San Francisco Poetry in Schools program and the Stagebridge Storytelling in the Schools program. She was also a member of Oakland's Art Commission for 8 years. Welcome to our Lighthouse, Nina.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
Wonderful having you. Oh my goodness. It was such a great day. Nina, my first question for you, I'm going to just get right into it. So when people think of you, when they think of Nina Serrano, they think of acclaimed, beloved California poet. They think of activist and advocate. What would people be surprised to know about you?
I don't know. Maybe that I have 7 great-grandchildren, or that I'm very surprised to hear you describe me as beloved and acclaimed. That's not how I see myself.
Tell me a little bit more about that. Why don't you see yourself as that way? I mean, I can guess at it, but do tell me.
Well, book sales, few. Invitations to be the featured poet, occasional. And general feedback from the world about my poetry seems to be scant, or feels that way. Or maybe I'm just greedy and it's never enough.
Somebody wise told me last year that it is not the quantity, but the quality. When I was not complaining, but I guess I was fretting that I wasn't being approached in the beginning for features. And they said, "Oh, you're gonna love it when you get approached for a quality feature." And I thought about that, and I said, "Yeah, that's very true. It's very true." So, folks, we're going to take a teensy-weensy break, but when we return, we're going to talk more with Nina. Welcome back, everyone. You are rejoining us and our guest, well-respected, well-loved Bay Area poet from Vallejo, Nina Serrano.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Nina, over this period, a name has emerged, pandemic poets, describing people who really delved into their art for themselves and the poetry community, as well as those who refound their voice during this precarious time. You have especially been such a guiding light, often contributing to periodic publications such as Going the Distance, Not There Yet in the Benicia Herald. You have provided comfort, helped many process their own similar fears through your words. Have your own words help you navigate this period with more clarity as well?
Definitely. I try to connect with my strongest, most hopeful self when I write poems about the pandemic and when I write poems. Maybe because that's what I need to do to keep myself going at this difficult time of life. I say difficult because I'm 87 years old, and these are the last years, and I am not at my best, that is, in energy and abilities. And I feel some of this decline as it's happening. So every morning I have to get past all that and get into why it's good to be here this day, this one more day, and for these however many days of life left. And so that's what I try to do. I try to connect to my most positive feelings. And I have a lifetime of the habit of hopefulness, and I've always had a tendency towards euphoria. So even though now all of those things are weakened, I could grab onto them. And it's in that place that I try to write poetry, because I do think about for whom is this poetry being written? It's for others. And I'm not looking for their pity or their compassion. I'm looking to strengthen them by sharing whatever are my own strengths, which is the ability to hold on to hope. And that is getting stronger and stronger, this ability, as our situations get worse. This COVID, this new COVID, is just popping up all around me.
Oh, yeah.
With that first COVID, I didn't know anybody. Well, one person who had it. But with this new COVID, it's coming, it's all over. I know many people. And at our own Thanksgiving, rather our own Christmas Eve dinner, 5 of the guests came down with COVID. So this whole thing of hope is very needed. Indeed. Because this is worldwide. And at the same time, I hear the war machine starting up again with Uzbekistan and Taiwan, these issues. I hear the old nuclear songs back again. And I've always been an advocate for peace, for international friendship and peace. And so this is very upsetting. I feel like this is a very difficult time when we have the threat of war and dissonance and this pestilence.
And that definitely brings it to a fine point. Not only having the urgency of time, but the situation with the ongoing pandemic and the threat of
military confrontations, and that they are so all about nuclear weapons, which could mean the end of the earth. I mean, and we're already fighting to keep the earth alive, keep Mother Earth going. So that's why I find this a difficult time and struggle for hope. I've always been a member of the peace movement. And I hope that that movement flowers again as it has in the past.
I hope so too. So, you rely very heavily on that font of hope, to keep you going. Um, when that reserve seems low, where do you go to? What do you seek to bring it back into your life, into your poetry?
Well, connection with other people, live connection, not
Mm,
just this kind of virtual connection, though I have to say that this virtual connection is saving my life. I mean, it's wonderful to be able to talk to you, another poet, right now, which we wouldn't really be able to do with the freedom that we can do now.
so true.
And I'm very grateful for that. I mean, I think this thing of virtual connections that let us talk face to face is a place that does fortify my spirit. And I think when I see my family, that always strengthens me.
Absolutely, of course.
And I'm blessed with a relationship with a wonderful man for the last 44 years. And I think I get a lot of strength also from him because I feel his support.
Amen to that. That is amazing. Um, it, especially in this disposable age where everything from relationships to phones can be gone within 6 months and there's a new thing. That is gratifying to me, for me to hear. um, so thank you for that very well thought out, and it was inspiring the way that you had answered that. You still were able to offer hope, I believe, even mentioning the possible threat of external, dangerous elements. There's still always that tenacious, very tenacious hope. Um, so, Nina, for your poetry, art, and activism, you have traveled and met people who have shaped your journey and your purpose. Can you please share with us one of these instances, these relationships, or these situations that left an indelible impression upon you?
Uh, well, I think perhaps it was being part of a film crew in Cuba and uh, traveling with Fidel Castro for 2 weeks
Mm,
throughout the island in 1968. I think that that gave me a lot of inspiration. Uh, First of all, to be among a culture of joy, which is Cuba, but I think that was always Cuban, but at a time of change. And that's always very exciting for me. I've always found revolutions a very exciting environment and have sought them out when I could. So watching institutions change overnight and watching all this newness, all this creativity that's
mhm,
released as people try to develop new institutions. So I think that was definitely one.
for sure. So, what do you think? You said revolution, and it's probably not within recent history, but it's I think of it as a wonderful thing too, because it does mean new, it does mean change. Why do you think that people treat that word with apprehension when they hear it? Is it a fear of new? Is it this association with it being something um, against the establishment, therefore bad?
Yes, and also because change is can be frightening if you
True.
don't know what's going to come of it. And when everything is topsy-turvy and the change is happening in the middle of that, it may not always be smooth and beautiful. And usually the revolution has come through violence and
There is that, yes.
death, and destruction of the old. So there's a lot of pain in that and fear.
Yes, that is true. You make me think of a episode from my childhood, and I will never forget this. I was in the Philippines when the EDSA revolution happened and the ousting of Marcos, and when Aquino was incoming as president, and they were, um, you know, they were against, that happening, obviously, because they were the dictatorship, and all the rapid changes that were happening. It was frightening, it was dangerous, but it was also, as young as I was, I understood that this was finally being free from this fear and these shackles that were holding our country.
I remember that period very well because I
Yes.
was affiliated with the anti-Marcos movement in San Francisco. And I could remember marching in front of the embassy when some local San Francisco Filipinos took over the not embassy, but there's another word when it's not an
consulate.
Yeah, took over
Yes.
the consulate, and we marched in front to support them. And I remember
You're giving me
that.
goosebumps, Nina. You give me goosebumps thinking.
Well, those were very thrilling moments to get rid of somebody as brutal and horrible as Marcos and his wife and her millions of shoes while people starved. It was a great moment.
Yeah, I was apprehensive again this year because it seems the dynasty is intent on continuing with his son. I'm not aware right now. I should be more aware of what's going on as far as their elections went, but I know that Bongbong, who was Ferdinand Mark and Imelda's son, was running for president. So that dynasty continues. The fight continues.
Yes, always. It never ends.
It never ends. And
it never ends.
Yes, and there's people like you, Nina, to continue the fight, and everybody who you inspire afterwards.
I hope so.
Yes. So I mentioned earlier how your words have been sources of comfort and a compass for many who read or hear your poetry, and that's myself included. Would you be so kind, Nina, as to read a few of those poems and perhaps tell us a bit of why you chose these particular poems that you'd like to share today?
Yes, I'd love to. I'm
you.
going to take a drink of water to prepare. I chose two poems, and I chose them to not be very old because I think the thing about being old is that you get associated with the past.
Mm-hmm.
And I see myself as being in the present. And so I chose two poems from 2021, which is last year.
Mm-hmm.
I chose one that I would put under the category of sad because it's about death, and the other of happy because it's about new life. So I'll begin with sad so that I can end with new life.
Sounds beautiful. Thank you.
And this poem is about my dear friend. Rooftop department store restaurant. We are carrying packages and are adjusting them on empty chairs at our table. The waiter arrives with huge laminated menus. I already know that my dear friend Judy will choose the least fattening selection, ordering a salad. I will feel guilty because I want cherry pie. Though knowing I'll order the same as her, we've done this for many years, so many decades. But I shouldn't take it for granted because it can stop, because it did stop. This is the moment when I see the waiter out of the corner of my eye throw something off the rooftop. It was my sense of immortality, the belief that our relationship and adventures would go on forever. So many trips, so many lunches, including in our kitchens, before we could afford eating out. We knew the players' names in each other's lives. I don't want to accept that our journey together can end. I want the waiter to throw down a net to catch eternity before it splatters to the sidewalk and dies. This next poem is patterned after one of my favorite poets, Federico Garcia Lorca, a Spanish poet. Green, oh, how I love you, green. Green, oh, how I love you, green. Green hills, green fields, blue-green, yellow-green, light green, and dark. Every tint, shade, and hue. Northern California greens after the rains. Green sprouts along the sides of the roads. Buds and leaves glisten. Fresh, tender, new green. I want to eat you. Bite off a vast field newly sprouted, blossoming without blemish. I could swallow you whole, leaving only tree trunks in my hunger, awakened by this new growth of green, of winter flowering into spring. The rush of aroused appetite, this rush of bursting euphoria, awakening my joy, my joy, my joy.
Nina, that is amazing. Just beholding, you as a poet in motion reading, it brings me such joy. You are a blessing. My biggest thanks to you, my really, really profuse thanks to you for guesting here today, for sharing those poems, beautifully curated, the sad and the joy. They were perfectly complementing each other, showing the difference between the two of them. Thank you, Nina. As always, this has been such a gratifying experience to be able to have this time to sit down with poets in our global community like Nina. A profuse thank you again to
Thanks
her
to
for
you.
being with us. You're very welcome. And another heartfelt thank you, of course, to all our faithful viewers. You can find out more about Nina's work on her website, ninaserrano.com. Please follow us across social media at the PGN Official, as well as find out more about our various shows, programs, and events at poetryglobalnetwork.com. Have a safe and restful weekend.
The rush of aroused appetite, this rush of bursting euphoria, awakening my joy, my joy, my joy.